In the international media, there is virulent propaganda about Islam. The media, it is bombarding misinformation about Islam. So every Muslim, he should be aware of these questions. I would like to repeat the statement. Dilasi O'Leary, in the book Islam at the Crossroad, on page number 8, he says that history makes it clear that however the legend of fanatical Muslims sweeping across the world, forcing Islam at the point of the sword, is the most fantastic, absurd myth that historians have ever repeated. We Muslims, we ruled Spain for 800 years. We didn't do the job. Later on, the Christian crusaders came and they wiped out the Muslims. There was not even a single Muslim who could openly give the adhan, that is the call for prayer. We Muslims, we were the lots of Arabia for 1400 years. For a few years the French came, for a few years the Britishers came. But overall, we Muslims, we were the lots of Arabia for 1400 years. Yet today in Saudi Arabia, there are 14 million Arabs who are Coptic Christians. Coptic Christian means Christians since generations. These 14 million Arabs who are Coptic Christians, they are giving shahada, they are bearing witness that Islam was not spread by the sword. We Muslims, we rule India for 1,000 years. If we wanted, we could have converted each and every non-Muslim on the point of the sword. We didn't do it. Today, more than 80% of the population of India, they are non-Muslims. These 80% non-Muslims, they are giving shahada, they are bearing witness that Islam was not spread by the sword. Indonesia has the maximum number of Muslims. Which Muslim army went to Indonesia? Which Muslim army went to the east coast of Africa? Which Muslim army went to Malaysia? Which sword? The reply to this is given by the famous historian Thomas Carlyle in his book Heroes and Hero Worship. And he places Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as hero number 1. He says that the sword indeed, but where will you get your sword? Every opinion at its beginning, it is precisely in one man's head. One man against the whole world believes in it. One man against all men, that he will pick up the sword and propagate it. You must take your sword and propagate it. Thomas Carlyle is talking about the sword of reasoning, the sword of intellect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Nahl chapter number 16, verse number 125, Udu'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'izatil hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And invite all to the way of thy Lord with wisdom and beautiful preachings, and argue with them and reason with them in the ways that are best and most gracious. Even if we had the sword of metal and steel, we could not use it. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 256, La ikraha fid deen, let there be no compulsion in religion. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Truth stands out clear from error. Thomas Carlyle is talking about the sword of reasoning, the sword of intellect. The sword which conquers the hearts and minds of people. There was an article published in the Reader's Digest, Almanac, Yearbook 1984. And it was reprinted in the Plain Truth magazine, which showed the statistics of the increase of the major world religions from 1934 to 1984. And number 1 religion, it was Islam, which increased by 235%. Christianity, only 47%. Which war took place between 1934 to 1984, which caused millions of people to accept Islam? Which war? Today, The fastest growing religion in America is Islam. The fastest growing religion in Europe is Islam. Which sword is forcing these Americans and Europeans to accept Islam in large numbers? If hijab subjugates the woman, if Islam subjugates the woman, then out of the people who are accepting Islam, why are 2/3 of them women? Who is forcing them? Who is forcing these American and European women to accept Islam? I would like to end this answer with the famous saying of Dr. Joseph Adam Pearson. Dr. Joseph Adam Pearson rightly says that people who worry that nuclear weaponry will fall in the hands of the Arabs, they fail to realize that the Islamic bomb, the bomb of the religion of peace, has already been dropped. It fell the day Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born. The fifth most common question is that why does Islam permit a Muslim man to have more than one wife? Earlier this misconception, it was at the top of the charts. But now it has come down to number 5. Jihad and terrorism has overtaken. The question is, why does Islam permit polygamy? Polygamy is divided into 2 types: polygyny and polyandry. Polygyny is where a man marries more than one wife, and polyandry is where a woman marries more than one husband. In Islam, limited polygyny is permitted, whereas polyandry, it is completely prohibited. In fact, Quran is the only religious book on the face of the earth which says that marry only one. There is no other religious book on the face of the earth which says that marry only one. Whether it be the Talmud, whether it be the Old Testament, whether it be the Ramayana, whether it be the Bible, Quran is the only religious book on the face of the earth which says that marry only one. And if you read Ramayana, the father of Sri Ram, King Dashrath, he had more than one wife. According to Mahabharata, Krishna, how many wives did he have? 4, 10, 100, 1,000, 16,108. If Krishna can have 16,108 wives, why can't we Muslim have maximum 4? Even if you read the Christian scriptures, according to the Bible, a Christian can marry as many wives as he wishes. It was later on that the Christian church, they put a restriction and said that a Christian should marry only one wife. Even if you read the Jewish scriptures, the Talmud, the Old Testament, Abraham, he had 3 wives. Solomon had 700 wives. So even according to the Jewish scriptures, a Jew can marry as many wives as he wishes. It was later on that Rabbi Joshim bin Yehuda, he issued an edict against it and said that a Jew should marry only one wife. Even the Jewish community that lived among the Muslims, even they married more than one wife till as late as 1950. It was later on that the chief rabbi of Israel, he put a ban, he put a restriction and said that a Jew should marry only one wife. Whereas, according to the scriptures, a Jew can marry as many wives as he wishes. Same thing in the Hindu scriptures. A Hindu can marry as many wives as he wishes. If you read the statistics of the status of women in Islam, published on page number 66 and 67, which showed that Muslims did 4.31% polygamous marriages, whereas the Hindus did 5.06%, 0.75% more than the Muslims. Even though it is illegal for a Hindu to have more than one wife, after it being illegal, the Hindus were more polygamous as compared to the Muslims. I don't know if it was legal how much the percentage would have reached to. But according to the Hindu scriptures, a Hindu can marry as many wives as he wishes. It was later on that the Indian government, the Indian Penal Code, in 1954, in the Special Marriage Act, they put a ban and said that a Hindu should marry only one wife. Whereas, according to the scriptures, a Hindu can marry as many wives as he wishes. 4, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, no upper limit. Let's see what the glorious Quran talks about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Nisa, chapter number 4, verse number 3, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدًا. Marry women of your choice in 2s, 3s or 4s, but if you fear that you cannot do justice, then marry only one. So only if you can do justice, you can marry more than one wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Nisa, chapter number 4, verse number 129, وَلَن تَسْتَطِيعُوا أَن تَعْدِلُوا بَيْنَ النِّسَاءِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتُمْ فَلَا تَمِيلُوا كُلَّ الْمَيْلِ فَتَذَرُهَا كَالْمُعَلَّقَةِ. And you will never be, and you cannot do justice between your wives, but do not turn away from them altogether. Many people think that it is compulsory in Islam to have more than one wife. Whereas it is mubah, it is optional in Islam to have more than one wife. But if you have more than one wife, and if you cannot do justice, then you are in a problem. So only if you can do justice, you can marry more than one wife. Let's analyze what are the logical and scientific reasons why Islam allows a man to have more than one wife. If we analyze, male and female are born in an equal proportion. But if you ask any medical doctor, he will tell you that the female sex, it is a stronger sex. It has got more immunity than the male sex. So, in the pediatric age itself, there are more deaths in males as compared to females. As life goes on, there are deaths due to drug addiction, due to alcoholism, due to wars that take place. In all these cases, there are more men who die as compared to the women. And the statistics tell us that the average lifespan of a woman is more than the average lifespan of a man. Today in the world, there are more females as compared to males, except in some third world countries like India, because female feticide and female infanticide is practiced. And there was a BBC report on the program assignment. The topic was, "Let her die." A British reporter by the name of Emily Beckenham states that every day in India, more than 3,000 fetuses are being aborted after they identify that they're females. And if you multiply this by 365, more than 1 million fetuses are being aborted every year after they identify that they're females. And according to Tamil Nadu Government Hospital, out of 10 females born alive, 4 are put to death. And if this female infanticide stops in India and the third world countries, in a couple of decades, the female population, it will outnumber the male population. Today in the world, there are more females as compared to males. In New York alone, there are 1 million females more than males. In USA alone, there are 7.8 million females more than males. In UK alone, there are 4 million females more than males. In Germany alone, there are 5 million females more than males. In Russia alone, there are 9 million females more than males. And God alone knows how many million females are more than males in the complete world. If I agree with the non-Muslim that every man should marry only one wife, and suppose if your sister, or suppose if my sister, happens to live in USA, and every man has found a life partner, and suppose if your sister, or suppose if my sister, happens to be one of those 7.8 million females who have not found life partners, the only two options she has is marry a man who already has a wife or to become public property. Public property is the most sophisticated word I can use.